House of David, episode 4. We are halfway through the season so far, and this show is really good. It's really good. Episode 4, however, I think there's probably less scripture in this episode overall, but let's do an overview. Let's talk about what happened in this episode and my general thoughts over it. So let's kind of skip through here. So first things first, we kind of start out with the aftermath of the anointing of David, okay? The end of episode 3, clearly we have David being anointed. He is kind of having these visions of what is going on in his mind, and we don't know exactly what these visions are all about, but we do see him as he kind of wakes up in this vision, and then he kind of touches the water, and then there's this huge explosion basically of water that happens once he touches it. So we see this, and then there's a huge explosion of water. Then he wakes up and he talks about his vision to Samuel. Samuel talks to him a little bit about what, God is going to do through him and what's actually going to be happening. He says that he has power in him. And so we see that kind of play out. And something interesting that happens in the scene is David, as he's talking to Samuel, he says, Israel already has a good king. Like, Israel already has a king, and he says a good one. And so he likes Saul. He actually prefers Saul as king, right? But he doesn't see that God has called David to be a king over Saul. And so yeah, it's a pretty interesting conversation that's happening here as Samuel is like, nah, Saul's out. You're the guy now, David is not the only one that's having struggles with this. As we see in this scene here, Eliab and Jesse and Abinadab and the rest of the boys, they're having a conversation like, hey, we can't tell anybody about this. We cannot tell anybody about what happened with David. We cannot talk about this. Samuel is a kook. He's crazy, is what Eliab is kind of saying. The rest of them are like, no, he's a prophet. Like this guy's saying right here, he's a prophet of the Most High. What are you talking about? Eliab is like, nah, this guy is kind of crazy. And Jesse's like, okay, we should probably talk to the elders. And Eliab kind of takes control of the family here. He's like, no, we are not doing that. We're all going to get killed. Like, do you want to die? Saul's going to kill all of us. The elders are going to kill all of us for trying to set up a coup. And so he's freaking out over this. He's like, no, we cannot do this. Then David has another kind of vision here. This one is quite interesting. I have a lot of theories about what this could be, but I don't really know. We're back to that same location here. I assume this is supposed to be some sort of creek where David is supposed to be picking up the smooth rocks to go kill Goliath. This is supposed to be near the Valley of Elah or something. It's possible, I guess. I'm not exactly sure what this is supposed to represent, but he sees this character here that is some sort of knight. The armor looks pretty good. It feels a little bit modern for me. What do you guys think? I'll do some more research on this to see, but it feels a little bit modern for me. My biggest theory on this is that this is King David later on in his life as he's a bit older and he's got a beard and kind of a full suit of armor here. It looks kind of Israelite-ish overall. We can kind of see that, but it feels a little bit modern for me. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? He says, who are you? It doesn't answer him, and then he sticks out his hand. And then that's pretty much all we really get. We get this close up ish. I can't tell if it's someone from the show. It doesn't look like it. I think this is most likely David later on in his life, like a future version of him as the king, as he is, destroying all these different civilizations and stuff and protecting Israel and setting it up and all of that kind of stuff. That's my guess here, is that this is a future David. Hey, real quick, I hope you're enjoying these videos. We put a lot of work into making these videos the best that we possibly can for you guys. If you want to help to support our channel and support what we do here on The Chosen Sleuth, then the best way to do that is through snipesupport.com. This is our Patreon where you can donate $5, $10, or $25 a month in order to help us to continue to make videos just like this, to have the time to spend hours and hours and hours and hours doing research and putting these videos together. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Thank you guys so much for your support. David. So we'll have to see about that. I don't really know, but he wakes up from that as his brother brings him back home. Then as he goes back home, we get the arrival of Joab and some of the other members of the Israelite army. And he gives them orders for a summons that is signed by Saul himself. Now, this summons, originally Eliab and Abinadab are like, oh, they're calling us back to the battle lines. Let's go back. But Joab says, no, it's actually not for you. It's for David. And so this is where the family starts to freak out, because they just had this conversation of like, hey, we don't want anybody to figure out that David was just anointed. We don't know what's going on here. Saul cannot find out. Otherwise, we're all dead. And so this is a pretty big, like, scary moment for him overall. And so we get that moment there. Now, next we jump over to King Saul. King Saul and Eshbal, as they begin to talk in his chambers. Eshbal is trying to get close to his father to kind of help him with his mind. He's going a little bit crazy, right? And Eshbal is coming in here to kind of help him through the situation. He actually has a pretty good idea. In this scene, he basically says, hey, what if we turned Israel into an attraction, so that all of our people would want to come to Gibeah and basically have this big capital that is a place that is a center for the arts. We can build a grand theater, and we can hire all these artists from Egypt and all over the world and bring them to entertain people, basically. And he's telling his father this would be the greatest of all distractions, so you don't have to think about you going crazy, basically. And then Saul's like, hey, that's a wise idea. That's great. That's really, really cool. And then Eshbal is like, hey, I could do it. I could build it. And Saul kind of laughs at him a little bit. And he's like, you couldn't do that. You're not the leader type. You're not really made for that. And so it basically gets to the point in this conversation where he says, well, what am I to you then? And he doesn't really fully answer the question. Saul doesn't really fully answer the question, but he definitely shuts Eshbal down. And Eshbal is not having a great time here. Now, at the end of this scene, we actually see as, I think his name is Yahir. Yahir, the elder of the tribe of Dan, he rushes into to this hall, and he actually kind of threatens the house of Saul. He says that the house of Saul has betrayed him and that he has to enact the law of Moses. Okay. Basically what has happened here is that Yahir's daughter, Dinah, has been, I can't really tell fully from this, but either she has been sexually assaulted by Eshbal, or they just slept together consensually, but she has been ravaged because of that. She's been basically disgraced because of that. Now, the name Dinah, you may remember this from kind of an earlier section, basically, of Genesis, where there is a woman named Dinah who is sexually assaulted, and there's some other stuff that happens there. This is not the same. This is obviously a different person and not a scriptural person there. So don't confuse those two things. Dinah being defiled here is not the same as before. Whenever we see with, I believe, Jacob, we see all of that kind of happening with that different Dinah that happened previously. But I think it's probably a hyperlink. It's probably a callback to that other Dinah. So this becomes a pretty big issue. Basically what happens is Saul starts to go crazy. He actually leaves the room. And then we have Ahinoam, his wife, coming in and basically dealing with the situation. What she decides to do, because Yahir is basically saying, hey, I want to enact the law of Moses. I want to kill Eshbal because of what he's done with my daughter. And Ahinoam says, well, if we enact the law of Moses, not only must my son be stoned, but also your daughter. And so we can't do that, can we? Right? She's trying to kind of find her way out of it. That your daughter also must be stoned alongside my son, as we can see there. He obviously does not want that to happen. And so they're kind of at a stalemate here as they go through, and they kind of continue on, and that's where she leaves it for now, but she's going to find a solution to this in a little bit. We see here that David goes with Joab to go to Gibeah. and head towards the city, head towards Saul, who has summoned him. They don't know why he's been summoned yet, and David is kind of a little bit hesitant, a little bit scared. He's not sure kind of what is going on here quite yet as they continue on. At the end of this, he also gives his sister Ava the lion's claws in order to remember, or she gives it back to him rather, because she's not scared of the lion anymore because it's been taken care of basically. And so yeah, we see that there. Then we continue on. We get to the next section. Jesse basically here is saying, hey, Eliab, make sure that David is safe, make sure our family's safe, protect them, and yeah, make sure that they're all good there, which he does. That there's this conversation. This conversation is actually very interesting between Eshbal and his sister Merab. They play really, really well as siblings. I think this is really well done. The chemistry between these two. If they weren't siblings, it would feel almost like romantic in a way at certain points, but it feels very good as siblings. Some of the best sibling acting I feel like I've seen in a show for a long time. Yeah. Very, very good. But they basically talk here, and she kind of calls him out a bit, and they're playing a game, and he's saying like, she's basically saying, hey, there's consequences to your actions, bro. Yeah.
I'm trying to look out for you.
Thank you so much for enlightening me. Thank you. Now I understand. Now I know.
Really not.
Who are you to tell me how to behave?
I don't know why I said that. Let's just play. Let's play. It's my turn.
Yeah.
So they play really well together. I think that it's a really, really good pairing, the two actors that are playing here. Merab especially, I think, is really, really good. The next scene we go to is dinner. Dinner with the family. This is really intense here. Let me play part of this.
You talk too much. You get yourself in trouble every time.
You will speak no further.
But Mother, I have so much more to say.
Asked what you are to me.
So earlier in the scene before, he asked what am I to you? So now Saul is answering that question.
And the truth is, from the day you first drew breath, you are nothing but the curse!
So Saul freaks out on him here, which of course is a pretty big deal. In the next section here, we see as everybody else leaves, as Ahinoam commands them to leave, and then she has a talk with Eshbal, where basically she talks about how when he was a kid, he scraped his knee, and she had to clean it out, and it hurt whenever she had to clean it out. And so she goes, you know what, I'm sad because I'm going to have to clean another wound now. Basically meaning, hey, I'm going to have to hurt you in order to fix this problem that you've made. And so they're going to have to deal with that as they go through this section here. Then the next section that we see is the outcome of this, which is that Ahinoam decides to banish her son to the refuge city of Endor. We'll talk about this in the deep dives, but she brings up a particular scripture which talks about how you could banish somebody to a refuge city, someone that is like an Avenger, right? And we'll talk about that. Not like the Marvel's Avengers, but a different thing there. So we will talk about that during the deep dives, but she mentions that here. So she's going to banish him to Endor, and that is what he is forced out going to. We see that he has a little bit of a moment with his sister. Again, I think the sibling play here is very, very nice. She's obviously worried about him, but she's messing with him at the same time. It's a lot of fun. He's obviously sad, but he's also making jokes. Like it feels very much like a sibling would be, because it's like you have your own language, and so I think it's very well done overall. I hope you die in a ditch. See, like, she's obviously doesn't mean that. What she really means is, I love you so much, but I'm not going to say that, right? And so I love how they do that play there. Next up, we have a very intense scene with Samuel, where Samuel finally gets back to Silas after, I'm sure, several days. And Silas is, he's a little bit crispy. Let's say it that way. Yeah, he's not looking so great. So he is completely burned up here. He's not looking good. He is not so great. So Samuel freaks out. He rides away. He is not looking forward to staying there. On Eshbal's way out of the city, he actually passes David, who is on his way into the city. Him and Eliab and Joab all go into the castle, into the fortress, and they meet up with Ahinoam.
Fetch him some clothes.
You stay.
She said to go.
Yeah.
So here, not only do we see Ahinoam, but we also see the who we said was the Witch of Endor. In between this last week of live streams and this one, I actually found out through John Irwin that this is not the Witch of Endor, but it's a medium that lives in Endor. She's going to be connected somehow to the Witch of Endor, but probably not in, for a few seasons, basically.
When my poor husband was at war, he was bitten by a serpent in his sleep.
So Ahinoam here is lying to him. She's saying he's bitten by a serpent in his sleep. That's why he's going crazy. The condition is more of his mind than of a physical condition. I need your help. I heard you're a musician. Okay. And then this gets into this section here where essentially there's a musician that is in the room right before David, and he gets kicked out and screamed at by the king. And then we have David as he goes into the chambers of the king, and he actually has kind of another interaction with Michal. He's already had one interaction with her, and she's the reason why he's here in the first place, because she's the one that saw him play at the wedding and obviously wants him here to maybe help her father. And so we see this interaction here, which is great.
You might not recall, but I heard you play at the wedding. And you were wonderful. That is why I asked the queen to bring you here. So just play like that again.
Remember, Joab kind of has a thing for Michal, at least in this show, so it's a little bit he doesn't like that David is talking to her right now. David wasn't even making eye contact with her before until she said, "Hey, look at me," and then they started having this conversation. So he's kind of afraid here of what's going to happen. Of course, he gets through that. Michal says, "Don't play to anybody else, play to me." Of course, there's this like kind of lovey-dovey type of stuff that's happening here, and then we get into the song, which is great. I love how all these songs feel, by the way. They don't feel like super studio, like almost like a musical where you're like, and now we're going to go over here. And then it like changes the music to like being perfectly produced, and it's like completely out of it. I like how they've done it. It makes it feel a little bit more real here. Yeah, I love all the songs that he's done so far. You see, as Merab is kind of affected by it immediately, and then everybody is immediately affected by it. Saul's spirits kind of lighten up, and then immediately we see as everybody starts to tear up. They're all crying, like it's obviously affected everybody, and Saul is really happy that he's able to kind of think through the music here. Of course, Michal is glad with her choice here as well. She's probably falling in love with him in that moment too, right? As we know, they're going to get married and all of that kind of stuff. And so then we see Eliab as he breaks into David's room here, and he's like, "Don't you dare look at Michal. Like, this is going to get us killed. Like, nobody can find out what happened with Samuel. You can't tell anybody. Make sure that you don't," right? Then this section here with the queen, we see that the Endor lady, not the witch, but maybe the I don't know, the secondary witch or whatever of Endor. She basically says, not only does he hold light, but there's also a lot of darkness in him. I'm not sure what that means necessarily, other than like clearly he's an imperfect person, but also there's a lot of darkness is going to come from him for the house of Saul specifically. So we kind of see that there. Then David sneaks out of his room at night and he finds Michal in the library. And here she finds out a couple of things about him. First of all, he cannot read. So that's one thing. Then she also talks to him about the Song of Moses, which of course is in the book of Moses. And so we see that happening here, where she talks about this specific section, and she's like, man, I would love if someone put this to music. Wink, wink. And so here he says he can't read. And she's like, I've always wanted to hear this put to song, basically. And then that's what he does all night, is he makes a new version of this song. And then in the morning, we hear that song right here. Again, Saul is being healed by this. Those spirits are kind of going away. That's what the scripture tells us is happening here. And then we also see as Michal is kind of falling in love with David. She hears the song and she's like, wow, I can't believe he made this for me, right? And so we see that there. As they continue on, then we see this, which is an interesting scene. We see Abner as he is trying to plan what to do with Samuel and with this new kind of pretender king, as he keeps on calling him. And we find out that he believes that the king is in Judah, in the tribe of Judah. This is because of the Endor lady that she said that basically is connected to Judah in some way because of a lion, all that kind of things. So now Abner and Ahinoam believe that it's in Judah. And so they are basically sending someone they trust in Judah, being Eliab and Joab, to go find this pretender and take him out, to deal with the situation there. And so they are going to go do that. Next up, we have another scene where Michal actually sneaks David out of his room and brings him back to the library. And we see this scene here where they're talking about the different books and different things that are happening. And then she basically gives him his first lesson. Is kind of where this ends here. And she gives him a small piece of paper. And on the piece of paper is his name. David is what it says. So she gives him this paper. His first lesson. I made this for you.
First lesson. Here.
And then if you listen.
Thank you.
You hear the same, in the background, you hear the same theme that we've been hearing for the last 4 episodes. Whenever it is David and Michal, we have that same, da 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 da. I can't do it now, but it's a specific theme that is there for David and Michal. It's obviously their musical theme that's kind of being tied throughout here.
What does it say?
So he doesn't even know how to read it. It's upside down. And then it says his name here, David. So yeah, that's what we have there. And then finishing out the episode, we've got 2 scenes. We've got one scene with Samuel. After he found Silas dead, he was really hoping his wife was still alive, which is Hela. And so he goes over there and he grabs her. We do not know scripturally what her name was, but he grabs her because he was afraid that she was going to be dead. And so he's, afraid basically that Saul is coming to kill them all. We know that Doeg is the one that is actually attacking them at the time. So he grabs his wife and they run. They run away after this. Then finally, we have an epic scene with Eshbal as he is riding in his cart to be exiled to Endor. Someone attacks. And so whoever attacks his cart burns everything up. They kill all the people that were with him, all the carriage riders or the guards or whatever else that went with him. And then we see as a figure of some sort comes up to him and says, hey, are you Eshbal? Son of Saul, basically. Now, I think this knife may be a clue as to who this person is, but I don't know. I don't know what this knife could be, other than it looks kind of scary. I don't know what this is connected to. So we see that there as he walks away, and he's like, okay, I guess he's letting me live. And then,
Are you coming?
are you coming? And then what other choices Eshbal have? Like, what else is he going to do? Is he going to walk to Endor by himself? This guy's probably going to chase him down and kill him if he tries to do that. So then he just follows, and that is the end of the episode there. So yeah, I thought it was quite a good episode overall. I probably wouldn't rate it the highest out of all the episodes, maybe like a 7.5. I think it's pretty good. There's just not a ton of scriptural things happening at the moment. Just the part where David goes and he speaks to Saul, basically. That's pretty much it. So yeah, that's episode 4. I thought it was pretty good. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if I missed anything in this, of course, eventually we'll get to our deep dives for episode 4, but we're not there quite yet. So we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.